word on the street? FisMaz Show. What's the word on the street? Like, who got the beats that be killing the game? Who's up on the screen? Who playing who? What's the score on the sheet? Fiso the Prince got him taking the seat. Got the legends giving us the 411. Fiso Maz from the 031. No hating sports and entertainment when we got it all and we're the only ones. And after all that action, never how we dripping high passion. Drippy on some rich amnesty, baby stylists and soak up with passion. If it's giving us less, then we never settle. Make sure you pull up and bring all your medals. Sit back and relax, let's go. It's FisMaz bringing you the FisMaz Show. It's the FisMaz Show. It's the FisMaz Show. It's the FisMaz Show. It's the FisMaz Show.
Hello everyone, I've got a special guest on today's episode and I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into all things South African cricket. I know when I say that you may think, oh, here comes headaches galore, but no, we're going to try and break it down and hopefully just, and just understand a little bit more what's happening at Cricket South Africa. But more importantly for me, I think today's biggest topic is the domestic squads. I think there's plenty of excitement with regards to what's going to be happening going forward with the two divisions. Plenty of big names coming back into South African cricket. So as I said, plenty of excitement with regards to that. So without any further ado, let me introduce the man who's going to be alongside me today. It's Tinus from Staden. Tinus, how are you, brother?
Hi, Fiso. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, looking forward to having some positive chats about cricket South Africa, or South African cricket rather.
Yeah, I mean, for those who don't know, Tinus, I mean, can you just break down for us, who you work for, what do you do, and how long you've been doing what you do?
Okay, so I'm a sports writer for Netwerk 24 and Beeld, Die Burger, Volksblad, and also Rapport. So basically for the Afrikaans press. I've been doing it full-time for about 6 years now. Been focusing on cricket specifically and rugby. I was at the 2019 Cricket World Cup. And yeah, since then, I've been covering all the everything that's happened within Cricket South Africa. So I think last few months, it's been more about the boardroom dramas, I guess, and then all the political things going on in cricket more so than what's going on the field. So I just hope that from now on we can focus a bit more on what's going on the field as well.
Yeah, the one thing I want to really pick up on is basically, as much as my main focus today, I want it to be about the domestic squads. I think we have to address the elephant in the room with regards to obviously, the interim board and the members' council. For someone who has not been following, for someone who's been reading about MOIs and this and that and all these terms that perhaps a normal person is not aware of, can you break down for us exactly where we are today and is there, I guess, a light at the end of the tunnel?
Okay. So yeah, it can get quite confusing because there's been so much going on. So basically, Cricket South Africa has been in a crisis since December 2019 when Thabang Morais was suspended as the CEO. Since then, they've had 3 acting CEOs. The issues last year were so severe that Minister Nathi Ntedwa was asked by Cricket South Africa's board at that time to also intervene and see if he can help sort out the mess. And SASCOC got involved, but then SASCOC passed the issue back to Minister Ntedwa because when Morais was suspended, Cricket South Africa commissioned a forensic report. And this forensic report was it's called the Fundutsi report. The company who did the report was Fundutsi, and it made a few recommendations. It focused on Thabang, but also on many other issues. And then when SASCO got involved, they wanted full access to the Fundutsi report, which Cricket South Africa didn't want to give them because they had fears of possible future litigation for people implicated in the report because there was a few scathing accusations made. Long story short, so they passed it back to Mr. Ntedwa. Minister Ntedwa then or first in October 2020, the board, the former board of Cricket South Africa resigned under a lot of pressure. And then Minister Mdedwa appointed the interim board. But from the get-go, the interim board and the members' council, those are the two sort of power centers in South African cricket. So the members' council, who's the members' council? It's the 14 presidents of the union. So Easterns, Northerns, Western Cape, Free State, KwaZulu-Natal, Northern Cape, all the unions, their presidents, they make up the members' council. The members' council is the highest decision-making authority in cricket. So think of it, you get the members' council, and then beneath them you get the board who drives the the members' council are the policy makers, and then the board they make the executive decisions. They decide the strategic direction that Cricket South Africa wants to go in, and then the executive, with the leader being the chief executive, they carry it out. The problem is, and where the MOI comes in, is that according to the current MOI, before it got changed, 7 members of the members' council also sit on the board. So you have a situation where you have in the same people playing referee and player. I think Stavros Nicolaou, who's the chairman of the interim board, stated that it's like marking your own homework, which I thought was very. So they wanted to change that. Who's they? It started with a different commission in 2012 under former judge Chris Nicholson, and he recommended that there be more independent directors on Cricket South Africa's board. Independent meaning people that's not also on the members' council. So, but for that to happen, the MOI, which is the Memorandum of Incorporation, which is the constitution of Cricket South Africa, that has to be amended. But now, so the interim board got a 9-point mandate from Minister Mdedwa. One of the points on the mandate was to change the MOI to incorporate the Nicholson recommendations for a more independent board in the future. So that was the sticking point. The last few months, everybody that's just picking up on this issue now, which there are a lot of people, because obviously now we heard of possible government intervention, and all that brings. The main sticking point was that the members' council didn't agree to 2 principles, one being a majority independent directors on the board and a majority and an independent chairperson. So now what happened was they agreed to it 2 weeks ago, but then at a special general meeting they did not vote it in, and that was when they did not vote to adopt the new MOI. That's when Minister Mdedwa said, well, he's going to use his powers according to the Sports Act, by stripping recognition and defunding the organization. And then they had yesterday, the members' council unanimously passed a resolution to adopt the new MOI. So where we are at the moment is that Minister Mdedwa will probably not, or well, he won't step in anymore. And in the future, we will have a situation where there is a board consisting of a majority independent directors. So you won't have those inherent conflict of interest anymore, or at least that's the hope. Now we hope for good independent directors, which will drive South African cricket forward. So yeah, at the moment, there is light at the end of the tunnel. It looks like crisis averted. Now the next phase is who are the new independent directors, because nobody on the interim board will sit on the next board, which will be elected in the middle of May at the AGM. So yeah, that's shortly where we are at the moment.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, it's all been happening for the past few years.
It's been crazy.
So yeah, man. I mean, I think a lot of people will take a lot of insight from obviously what you've just told us about there. And man, it sounds like a topic that probably needs an episode on its own at some stage. Probably once we do have that conclusion with regards to the board being voted in, then we can kind of really look back at the entire journey, I guess, and have a look at where it's gone wrong, where it's gone right, and and hopefully, like you said, we have that light at the end of the tunnel. And just for anyone who's obviously watching at the moment, because things do change at any point in time. Today's Thursday, the 29th of April, when we're recording this show. So if something happens after this, well, I don't know. But hopefully it'll stay as it is, and there will be a bit of positivity going forward. Now, the next topic, obviously, I want to touch on is, of course, the domestic squads. I did an episode a while back with Kanyuso Chwaku with regards to, I guess, the domestic restructure. But today I want to focus on the squads because there's been a lot of changes. Obviously, we're going back to the provinces. I mean, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the contracting and how it's worked and what excites you about this new system.
Well, I found it very exciting, the whole process. I mean, it was almost like rugby or football when it's transfer season. There's a lot of moves. You're wondering what's going to happen, and obviously the big thing was now that we're moving back to a provincial setup where Northwest and Boland got added to the main division. So we've got the 6 former franchises playing well in the colours of their provincial teams. So the Knights will not be Free State, probably Free State Knights, or Titans will be Northern Titans. So it was very exciting to see the moves. And obviously the other thing was there's now I think 70 or more than 70, something like 77 fewer contracts available. So it was also a stressful time for a lot of the players because they didn't know, will they get contracts? Each team also have they could contract 16 players, 15 players plus a rookie, which was fewer than normal. So there were a few nervous players, but that was very exciting to see the moves. I think especially the things that excited me most was to see what impact will Boland and Northwest being added to this to the Division A or the first division. What impact will that have? And I mean, for Northwest, we now know a few players from the Lions like Delano Potgieter, Nono Pongolo, Eldred Hawking, Nicky van den Berg, Wesley Marshall, they moved from the Lions to Northwest because if you remember, the Lions franchise was made up of Northwest and Central Gauteng players, and then also Boland with the Malan brothers moving to Boland from Western Province, which is probably a big blow to Western Province because they are exceptional players. So yeah, that was quite interesting. Also, another thing that people should remember is that the national players, the players that are nationally contracted, I think there are 16 of those, they don't get provincial contracts, so they can choose who they play for. So Dwayne Pretorius, who played for the Lions the last few seasons, he elected to play for Northwest. So yeah, Northwest also, yeah, they have him that they can choose as well. And the other interesting thing was obviously seeing the Core Pack players return. Obviously with Brexit ending last year, or beginning was it beginning of this year, all that being carried through, Brexit being carried through, the Core Pack era ended, and that meant a lot of players couldn't play in Europe as locals anymore because that's basically what Core Pack boiled down to. So those players, guys like Kyle Abbott, who signed for Boland, which was quite a surprise, Simon Harmer signing for Titans, David Bedingham coming back for Western Province, also Hashim Amla coming back for Western Province. Fernand Philander would have signed, but COVID happened, and now he's playing for Western Province. So yeah, that's also a very interesting part. Dane Patterson coming back playing for Eastern Province. Yeah, so that was also the other interesting thing. And Duane Olivier also for the Lions. So yeah, those were some of the interesting things from the moves in the new structure that I found very, very exciting.
I mean, one of the really key points that you make there, obviously, is with the return of all those Cold Pack players. I mean, I'll come back to I guess the other domestic moves, but you look at there's been this trend that's happened in cricket over the past few years. I mean, growing up, you wouldn't see a lot of the national players sticking around post their kind of national retirement. So you look at a dynamic like a Vernon Philander still playing, Hashim Amla coming back into the setup, and you think just how massive that is for a change room with young players. I don't think you can put a price on that.
Huge, man. I mean, if you look at Hashim Amla, you'll be sharing a training room with youngsters like John O'Bird, Carl Verreine, Zubaya Hamza. I know Hamza's probably now, you can say, his experience, but I mean, in terms of nobody's as experienced as Hashim. And also to the bowlers, young bowlers, Nandre Burger bowling to Hashim Amla in the nets. I mean, that's yeah, like you say, you can't put a price on that. And that's always been the thing. That's always been one of the main reasons that Corpac was such a sticking point. It wasn't only that you lose these guys for international duty. I think that was probably that started to become a talking point when Carl Abbott, in his peak, when he went over and signed a Corpac. That was then probably the reason that. But I mean, before that, it's such a drain. It's such a drainage of brilliant players domestically that could boost your domestic game so much, and help these young players to come through and really realize their potential. And I think the hope is now that also one of the reasons for the domestic structure, obviously, money was a big thing, but also they were speaking of strength versus strength, and they wanted to create a pipeline for the for strong Protea team. And how do you get a strong Protea team? Is if these guys can, on domestic level, compete with players of international quality, and play against international players and with international players. And now you have a Vernon Philander and Hashim Amla. Their international careers are done, so that they won't be gone for the majority of the season. They'll be there. They'll be in the nets, in the video sessions, in the fielding sessions, giving these youngsters information, helping them with their techniques, helping them with whatever they need. So I mean, that's a massive boost for South African cricket.
And I mean, you touched on a really interesting point there with regards to, I guess, those players with experience being around more often than not. Because I mean, we had a chat about it, and I was commentating in the T20 competition, and it's almost like when you're playing at domestic level and you I guess you're bowling against other domestic players, you can only learn so much, because the margin for error at international cricket is so small that when you're bowling to, whether it's a Faf du Plessis, whether it's a JP Duminy, or whoever would be playing, that margin for error now you face it, because if you're a little bit loose, those kind of players put you away. And it's massive from that point of view, not only for the players in those change rooms, but just the competition of being able to play against really good players that will test you every single time.
Yeah, you can see it if you look at the IPL. A guy like Mohammad Siraj, the Indian bowler, he's come through the school of IPL, if I can call it like that, when you literally, every ball you bowl is to a world-class batsman. And those guys now, India suddenly have this abundance of riches where all these guys coming through the IPL, because they've been facing all these brilliant players every year. And it's the same, yeah. I mean, if you look at the squads, each squad, there's top quality players in every team. I mean, Free State probably have the fewest Proteas, but they have a guy like Farhan Behardine there, and I mean, he's a local legend. He's probably one of the best ever franchise players. And also Northwest, here you have a guy, also another Corpac I missed a bit earlier, Heino Keen, coming back with all that experience that he brings. Stian van Zyl at Boland. Every team, obviously Gauteng, they have so many talented players. Natal, also brilliant. Titans, they have 6 nationally contracted players. So those teams are sorted. But even the teams that you, I don't want to say don't expect it from, or lesser teams, because all the teams are good, but the teams with maybe traditionally not those many Proteas, even they have a few guys that are now in the domestic setup. And the thing is, it's now so competitive, because you're playing for something the whole time. You're playing not to be relegated, because there'll be promotion relegation between the first division and the second division. So there is no time for relaxing. It's going to be. I think that's the hope. That's the hope that the decision makers at Cricket South Africa have, and that's also what we as fans would love to see. And I really think that we will be in a situation where where you really see a domestic sort of a bloom in domestic cricket, because I think also another thing is that there's some excitement from the public and from the cricket loving fraternity about the new structure and how it's going to look. And so I think hopefully we will see a lot of domestic players really coming forward and sticking their hands up and making themselves known for national selection as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really exciting time, and I look at it holistically, and I think all of a sudden you won't have players sitting out because of, maybe wanting to rest, or because now there's so much at stake for the provincial teams with the threat of relegation at the end of the season if you haven't played good cricket throughout. So pretty excited about that. In terms of surprise moves, which move for you do you think was the biggest surprise? I mean, I looked at a guy like Senyoran Muthusamy, Durban man through and through, and Clifton down in KZN. I looked at that and I was like, I never saw that coming. And not only from a Dolphins point of view in terms of letting him go, not even for his point of view in terms of, I never saw him going to Northwest in terms of going to play his cricket, but it's a fantastic opportunity.
It's crazy. I mean, yeah, it is a bit of a shock, because what is there to do in Poch? I mean, except to go to
I never said that.
No, I'm kidding. I have a lot of friends that studied there. So yeah, but I mean, that was a big move. But on that theme, it's quite interesting, because you have a few players who's moved from provinces. And these guys there was a lot expected from them, and now I'm talking about a guy like Jason Smith who moved from the Cobras to the Dolphins, a guy like Diego Roja who moved from the Titans to Eastern Province, a guy like obviously Muthusamy, he did perform at the Dolphins. But also maybe a guy like Gian Kluter moving from the Warriors to the Titans after he made his Protea debut, playing for the Warriors, but now he fell away a bit. But now he almost has a new leash on life, you would hope. So that's also an interesting theme. These Oaks almost getting a second breath blown into their careers with those moves. And that also it also adds to the excitement. A guy like Senyoran Muthusamy playing for Northwest, can you imagine what he can also teach all those guys about facing spin, playing spin, bowling spin? So yeah, that was also another interesting move to me was Kyle Abbott, because before the domestic restructure, he signed a short-term contract with the Titans, and I thought he might stay there. But yeah, with him going to Boland was quite interesting. Sean von Berg obviously has an interesting story. So he was at the Free State. He was the top performer, top wicket taker, and then I think the contracting opened, was it 15 March, the first window, and then there was only, so the teams got chance from I think the 15th March to the 29th of March or something like that, to contract their first 8 players. But a lot of teams also, they settled on their whole squads in that time. And a week after the contracting opened, Sean von Berg was told by the Knights that, listen, yeah, we don't have space for you anymore. We did our maths and sorry, we have to cut you loose. And he was like devastated, because he didn't speak to any other teams. That's what he says. He didn't speak to any other teams. Because he believed he was given the impression that he would get a contract with the Knights. So then on number 99, Boland came through and they gave him a contract. So that's also quite an interesting move. Hardisviljoen also going to Boland. Tandun Tini going from the Titans to Durban. That's also quite an interesting move.
Plenty of really exciting moves. And again, I look at that Sean von Berg story, and I remember when I followed it briefly, it broke my heart. I mean, I looked at a guy who has given his all in terms of whether it's playing for Northerns, whether it's playing for the Titans, or whether it's playing for the Knights. A guy who, I've always felt that, should have had maybe a look in when we've gone on subcontinent tours, just something different. The skill and the fire in his belly that he does possess. And yeah, I mean, it's the brutality of professional sports, I guess, but it's one of those where you're happy that there's a happy ending. But it just shows that, anything can happen.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I say that this whole contracting process with 77 few contracts being available, it was a cutthroat environment. It's relentless. The thing with Sean, he told the story that in November of last year, in November 2020, he sold his house in Pretoria to move to Bloemfontein. And then a few months down the line, he got told, well, listen here. And at that stage, he didn't know that he was going to Boland. So he thought he might even stop playing cricket. And he said, but now I've been in this house for 3 months and now I have to move again, but I don't know where. I don't have a job, basically. That's what it boiled down to. And also the other thing with Sean van Berg that was quite interesting is that being a leg spinner, it's such I've had a great discussion with Eddie Lee about the art of leg spin. And the thing with leg spinners are that there's not a lot of them in South Africa. And it's such a difficult skill to master, that when you have someone like Sean van Berg who's been doing it and has over 400, I think, first class wickets, you don't want to lose that intellectual property. You want that be carried over to young, because I mean, everybody wants to be a leg spinner when you're young, and it's such a cool thing to do. But it's such a difficult thing to do. That's why not a lot of guys make it through. So if you have a guy like him who's still delivering the goods, who can teach the next generation and help them come through, then you really should utilize it. And then I'm really glad for him that he got the opportunity to Boland. At that Boland team, it's a cracker of a side. I can't wait for the Boland Western Province derby. That's going to be a big one.
I tell you what, on the back of that story, I can't wait for Boland versus Free State, because
I
have a feeling Sean van Berg
grudge match,
have a score to settle. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess going back to all that rivalry, that fierce and that provincial spirit, you identify to it perhaps a little bit more than with the franchise system, where you kind of had, like you said, it was Gauteng, and it was Northwest combined as the Lions. It was KZN Inland and KZN Coastals combined as the Dolphins. So at least now with that splitting, I guess you might get that sense of, going back to the old days, that the Curry Cup and whatever you want to call it in the mid-90s, Benson and Hedges. That was always so exciting, and yeah, I mean, it's really awesome to obviously chat to you with regards to all of that. But in closing, I just want to get your thoughts. I mean, with regards to Division 2, I mean, I've got some of the teams here, and I look at, is it an Inland, Cameron Delport, player who's played for Essex. He's played plenty of T20 cricket around the world. He's actually a player I played with for Natal in school. Oh. He's an old mate of mine. I look at Border, Marco Murray. You look at Grant Thompson at Easton's, Aubrey Swanepoel, Rivaldo Munsami, Jonathan Vandier, all playing for Northern Cape. So it also makes things quite interesting with regards to that particular division, and players who maybe some will be surprised are down in that division. You look at, Marco Murray, a guy who is so explosive on his day, but you hope that him going to play for Border gives them a better opportunity to come up into the top division. And hopefully Marco, who I felt has been maybe up and down in terms of, is he an opener? Is he batting in the middle order? Is he a finisher? What role does he fulfill? Hopefully with the move, it also gives him a bit of clarity, and he can play his natural game and I guess find himself again, because what a player on his day.
Yeah, I think there's two sides to this. The one is that it just shows you how competitive it was for contracts in the first division, that a guy like Marco Mare, I see Onion Yaku is also there. Jonathan Vandier couldn't get placed in the Free State team. Like you say, Grant Thompson, he captained the Titans, and now he's back at Easton's. Also, another interesting move there is Ruben Herman at Mpumalanga. That could also boost Mpumalanga their chances a bit. But it's good. I think it's fantastic that we have these sorts of players in the second division. I've also heard that it might be that Leas de Ploy will play for SWD. So I mean, that's also a big callback signing back to South Africa. So if we have a lot of competition, you don't want to sit in a situation where the Division 1 teams are so strong that the gap between the Division 1 teams, I think it's sort of inevitable that you will have a gap between the two divisions, but you want to make that gap as small as possible, because we will have a promotion relegation in 2 years' time. Then it'll start a promotion relegation, and you can't have a situation where now in the first 2 years of this new structure, the 8 teams in Division A are so strong, all of them, and it's so tightly contested that you can't call a game between Gauteng Free State or Gauteng Boland or Gauteng Northwest or whoever. You shouldn't be able to call games, and you don't want a situation where for 2 years you have that, and then when the first promotion relegation happens, and let's say Border comes into Division 1, and let's say for argument's sake Western Province fall back, then that Border's just the whipping boys. That's something that you really want to avoid. I think there will be an element of that, but you want to mitigate it and make it as small as possible. So for that reason, that these guys in these teams, that each of these teams have a good quality player, an experienced player, can help bring the youngsters through, and so I think that's pretty impressive and very, very important for the overall well-being of domestic cricket in South Africa.
I know I spoke with Vernon Philander a while back, and he spoke about this now. Essentially, it's going to force provincial sides and provincial unions to make sure that their pipelines are in order, because now once you obviously have your contracted players, I'm sure it won't be as easy as before in terms of loaning players and things of that nature. Now you've got to be breeding those cricketers to come through your pipeline and make sure that they can play their part if there's any injury crisis of any nature.
Exactly. That was one of the first things that I thought when I heard of the restructure. I thought that club cricket, this is going to be one of the best things ever for club cricket, because now suddenly you have club cricket really being relevant again. Because club cricket, you had the situation where the good club players were also, they were filtering through to the provincial teams, but that was then semi-pro. So I mean, being a club player and being called up to Gauteng when there was still a Lions, when the franchise was still there, that wasn't as big a thing as it will be now. Because the top 6 teams, like you say, you can't quickly go and grab a player out of your semi-provincial. The Knights can't go to the Free State and take a player. The Free State, the next line is now club cricket. So strengthening club cricket, strengthening schools cricket, that pipeline. I think that's also going to be very interesting, that we might get a situation where club cricket once again gets very, very strong and very recognized as sort of the only step down from professional cricket. So that's also very exciting.
Yeah, definitely adds a different dynamic in terms of incentive. I know, for me as a young man playing club cricket and sharing a change room with guys that were playing national or playing provincially, it always gave you that tangible feel that it's something that you can achieve. It's something that through your hard work, you can get there. And I think, like you said, the dream had probably died for a lot of club players in terms of that, because a lot of teams, a lot of franchises were contracting from outside of the province as well. So it's kind of, it became a real social affair. And in some parts of the country, it was probably dying out.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. And now with this, like we say, it will gain relevance again. You'll get top class players still playing club cricket, but now having that dream of, listen here, I have to, if I perform, I know that. But then also, it's also the responsibility of the teams and the talent scout of the teams, of the provincial teams, to extend a hand to the clubs and to tell them and to show up at the club games, be there and tell them, and then pick the guys to do well, invite them to your training, invite them to, so yeah, that can add a much needed boost to club cricket again.
Yeah, exciting times, exciting future, I guess. We'll see how it does pan out. But yeah, Tinus, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. And I hope I can tap into your vast knowledge in the future again. And we appreciate having you on the show.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much. It was a lot of fun.
All right, cool. Cheers, Tinus.
Cheers, man.
Yeah, really interesting chatting with Tinus van Staden. Plenty I took from that conversation. I guess you look at the structure of South African cricket and you think exciting times. For some players, we touched on obviously Marco Murray, Onke Nyaku, a number of players who were in the franchise mix that have gone down to Division 2. I think it will be disappointing for them, but it gives an opportunity to go back and really graft and find your way back to the top of the South African game. But interesting times. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you all are. And yeah, it's good to be back. Thank you for your patience. Obviously, it's been a difficult time for me, my family. Lost my uncle recently. I was busy with the South Africa versus Pakistan series. It's always hard. It's always hard. But yeah, good to be back sharing these wonderful stories, getting stuck into interesting topics. And yeah, more of the same is coming. I thank you once again. And make sure you keep subscribing and liking the show on all our platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook Watch. No, we're not on Spotify. Why am I? Yeah, we're not on Spotify, but we are on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Facebook Watch, as well as Iona FM. So make sure when you go to those platforms, you hit the subscribe button and you stay tuned in to what should be an exciting ride. It's the FisMaz Show. It's a wrap for today. I thank you. See you again soon.